Okay, says we're live. Hello, world. Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy here today on the Bonsai Balcony. Tonight on the Bonsai Balcony, it is Saturday Night Live Bonsai, and we are calling this Back at the Ponderosa. According to my laptop, we are live, and according to the little green dots at the bottom next to the microphone, I'm screaming, bellering, or whatever. Um, but we're going to do a little thing tonight on this tree. This has been a fairly busy little tree in the past year. We acquired this tree. This is a Ponderosa pine. It is a Yamadori Ponderosa pine. It was collected off of the side of the mountain in Deadwood, South Dakota. Its estimated years is 120 something. I don't really, it's like I always say, decide whether or not you like a tree based on the tree you see before you. You know, if you get ready to buy and you're going, I don't know, that's a lot of money, and somebody goes, well, it's 130 years old, and you're like, okay, I'll take it. Then if you find out later that it's 20 years old, are you going to be like super disappointed? I mean, think about the tree that you're buying and buy it on that merit. People can look at something and say, I have seen people misjudge the age of trees before, and I don't think they meant to do that. So that's just kind of, I'm not saying it's a scam or nothing, because I don't think it's a scam. I think really old trees are really worth the money and the time and the patience and the care that people have put into them. But yeah, when I bought this, it was said to be over 100 years old, and I don't really think that more or less influenced my decision to get it. I do believe that, though. On the whole, I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but I do believe it based on the fact that ponderosas, especially in that part of the country, in that climate, grow incredibly slow. And I'm looking at the dead wood on the end, and I'm thinking that was probably the rest of the trunk at one point of this tree's life. So it was, it was probably what is now an apex was probably a limb not too many years back. But on the balcony, this guy has a place where it gets ample sun, but then it is also out of reach. It's about 5 feet from me, and I can't get any closer to it than I would be able to get if I were looking at it. Probably I could get closer to it if I were seeing it at display in somebody's garden. But at about 5 or 6 feet away, because I have other trees in front of it. And while I can see it well enough, I also see some dead needles. And I'm looking at it from 5 feet away, and I'm going, should probably, I'm going, things are fine, things are fine, things are fine. But I'm also going, and the tree is 5 feet away, so you should probably, especially given the year that we've had, you should probably move a couple of things out of the way, bring this little princess down off of her pedestal and bring it into the house, and let's have a look and see what needles are yellow, what needles are brown, what needles, how are we doing? How are we doing on this thing? I'm just not totally comfortable with the fact that I'm like 5 or 6 feet away from this tree, and I'm not able to kind of just really get up close and personal. And I'm thinking about how many changes we have gone through. This tree has gone through this year, and okay, one, I bought it. Two, before I bought it, it got heavily wired and styled, but everything was up high. No sooner did I get it out of the crate than I said, well, they also styled it to make it fit in that crate, because I could see everything was kind of like out in front like this so that they could bring the crate size down. Knowing that wasn't the original, that there wasn't an original aesthetic design in mind, that didn't bother me a bit. Whatever they needed to do to get it here was fine. We got a healthy tree. So then I put the branches with the wire that was already on there in a position that I liked. That brought everything down, brought something that was up like this down and kind of doing this, and everything kind of had a twist going to it. I put spirals and twists everything to it. kind of like the trunk is doing. In fact, that was the reason I bought it, so I could do my twist and Cheerio thing with a tree that already had a twist and a Cheerio. That was very, very long in the making. It took a long time for this tree to make this twisty Cheerio that he made. And I thought, the design thing I'm doing right now that I'm enjoying should play well into that. So we got well off into that, and I also have things in the back of my mind that I wanted to learn about. I was watching Bonsai Mirai then as now quite a bit, and Ryan does a lot of work, loves Ponderosa, speaks highly of them. Whenever I feel like I need to go see pretty Ponderosas, I will go visit his site and just look at the trees that are photographed there to be seen, either for sale or in garden or in collection or recently sold or whatever. I'll just go through and just look at all the Ponderosas and go, gosh, I mean, I really like them. And but on the other hand, there are other things that I worry about. I've got um, I've got an emotional investment in this tree, and I want it to do well. And I live on the coast. I live on the California coast in a climate that is probably, I could be wrong about this, but I'm just guessing, is probably close to the climate that Japanese black pines would have originally come from. I don't get hurricanes here. They could get hurricanes where they originated from because they've adapted to do so, but they were coastal pines. And I live in a place on the coast. Hello, Paul Krause. And I live on a place on the California coast that's pretty temperate weather, but our Japanese black pines tend to do really well, and I probably get away with stunts that maybe I shouldn't get away with, or to put it another way, they grow so well here that I can push that a little in a way that other people that have harsher climates for them, the trees are like maybe always adapting or something, and you shouldn't go fudging with that. I can totally see that. Like what I was also told by some was that these trees, the Ponderosa, would not, as a high elevation single flush pine, necessarily do well here. And I've had people show me, and I've had diagrams on the forestry map show me where there are pockets of these speckled around. But I have to take into consideration that I live in a place that has numerous abrupt elevation changes. And if something's 20 miles from here, it also might be another 500 feet up or something. So it's probably not a matter of how far away it is from the ocean, but also how far up it is from the ocean and some other things that would cause this tree to maybe not do well hanging out in a beach town in California. So a couple of ways around that. I can take this tree and overwinter it somewhere where it is more likely to have the winter that is more suitable to its um, health and its hormone allocation. So in the winter, it'll probably shut down for a minute, and then it won't burn itself out the following spring when it's just ran all season long. So that's one thing. Another thing that can be done is to um, put grafts on the tree that is a species that is more suitable to the climate where the tree is living. So, I mean, a ponderosa can take grafts of all different types of pine trees, and there might be all kind of reasons why you might go with this or you might go with that. Maybe I want to make this. It's a flush, single flush, long needle pine. There's methods to making the needle shorter, but they take a couple of years, and that's fine. That's fine. There's a lot of things about bonsai that take a couple of years, but they're only going to get you so far. And if you had a tiny tree, they may not get you to that believable like. They might get you to a fun, likable like length, but it's not totally going to scale down to the tiny size that you need it. You can do that with a Japanese black pine. Another single flush white pine, another single flush pine is the white pine, and they have short needles. They have beautiful needles. So if I wanted to keep this in kind of its same little realm a little bit, I could maybe have this grafted or graft it with white pine. I would get shorter needles. They're pretty foliage. They do well to bonsai and they can be manipulated well. And that ponderosa bark would certainly play into a nice rugged look that would lend itself well. A lot of times people will graft white pine onto Japanese black pine. That way they get all that rugged bark and then they still get that nice kind of white pine, pretty green foliage. Now the problem with me doing that is I wanted white pine, but I've been told that they do not do well here in the Bay Area. Ixnay on the one pine. Okay, so we can't really do that because they don't do well here. But I have had this guy while I overwintered it this past winter. The keeper of the garden was a hi Titan. How are you doing tonight? The keeper of the garden where I overwintered this Ponderosa um, does lectures and does work on trees as well as overwinter trees. And we discussed his putting some grafts on the tree for me, as opposed to me learning how to graft and then start experimenting on my 10 little seedlings that I had. And depending on how well that did, maybe starting on the next couple. Anyway, we got started this year. That's what all those green pieces of tape are. And I am to remove all of those pieces of green tape and expose all those grafts in about a month or November. When I brought it in, I saw that one of them has already got its tape missing, and I wouldn't have noticed because it is so dry it looked like a piece of wood. So I don't have the best feeling for that particular little graft. Although I was told that whenever I uncovered these things in November, I probably just made a huge clunk noise on the mic, not to go making any big, huge judgments over what I saw, just to uncover them, let them go, keep things going the way they're going. Now, we ended up with about 5 or 6 grafts on this tree. If one of them take, we're off to the races. 2 of them take, we're off to the races. If none of them take, uh, we're just going to sit back and take care of the tree, and then next next winter it'll go back upstate and overwinter, and we'll have it reloaded. Um, that's going to be the way I go with this. But wherever those pieces of green tape are, they're back here closer. Everything else is way farther out. As the Yamadori, nobody was ever nobody was ever making decisions as to how to keep the tree short. It just started growing longer and farther out. And ponderosas are known to do all that. So you end up with this flush of you end up with this flush of growth way out here on the end, and all of this is nothing. And it's in a matter of time you can't even graft to it once it has bark going on it. And they're known for that. They're known to have these long, long, long branches. So the first thing somebody would do to a yamadori like this is, of course, try to bring all that stuff in. But if they're ridiculously long, and they are, then they're going to end up crossing in front of the trunk, back and forth and back. You're not supposed to have stuff crossing itself, but you've got this tree that is more in an octopus shape. I mean, it's really got some links to all this stuff. So you fold it all back in, and then when it comes time to graft, maybe you have some styling ideas in mind. Maybe you don't. The basic idea is to graft as far in on the tree, because right now all the growth is way out here. And you may look at these branches and go, yeah, I'm just going to put a graft next to every one of these. Why would you want that? This stuff is way too far out. If we put all the grafts back here closer in the closest place that they can be to the tree, then that's going to give us a great opportunity to make this tree shorter, and we get to make those stalling cues from then on. So we uncover these pieces of tape, and we have 1 or 2 grafts going. That's fine, fine, fine. In a couple of months, we'll go through and start removing half of the foliage that's Ponderosa foliage. So the that would empower the grafts that we made, the scions. Also, when it comes to this particular combination, when it comes to this particular combination of Japanese black pine and Ponderosa, when you graft the two, you kind of get a super tree. Um, the needles on black pines move water very well, highly efficiently, and they have that nice look to them. And the needles on ponderosas by are very coarse, and they can hang onto the water. They can close up their little pores and just hang on to all that water so that it won't go out. And that's also part of the reason why they take up water so slowly. So, in contrast to that, if you've got grafts that have taken that are black pine on your coarse vascular system ponderosa, those grafts tend to do very very well. They will accelerate. They will, if given any chance whatsoever, they will outrun their counterparts, their original counterparts. So, and at that point, if we have that, just part of it. I mean, I might be speaking out of turn. We we might uncover no living graphs just because of the amount of stuff that we've gone through this year, or it could be anything. But I feel good about it. But if we have uh, working graphs going this year, and the tree starts that that switch over, then what we will be looking at is no longer overwintering the tree uh, like it's a ponderosa. From then on, we will start trying to allocate more and more energy towards the Japanese black pine that's living on the tree, and we will start trying to and we will start treating the tree like a Japanese black pine, and we'll be a year or two away from starting to do the candles and all that other. So I'm looking at this tree on my balcony, and today I was doing today's show, which I haven't dropped yet. I like to drop those after the live show. I think yeah. So while I was looking at trees that were right in front of me, and we were discussing today's show was about watering. How I got over being stressed out about watering. Um, and while I was looking at these ponderosas and little black pines in front of me, I was looking through them at this guy, and I can see it pretty well. I don't feel like I'm missing anything, but I was looking at the overall color, and the overall color was like an 8 out of 10 because I see a few needles that are not the brightest green in the world, and and I could and I could just go through my mental checklist and go, what would that be? This time of this time of year, which is also third year needle saying, thanks for the fish, we're out of here. That's some of these that you've seen me. And if you touch them and they come off, that's what those are. Um, second year needles that have, for whatever reason, found themselves in a situation that they weren't totally crazy about. Okay, that would be that'd be me. That'd be me right here because I got the tree. It had been shipped. That'd be hard on it. It it came out of a container, and all of its branches that had been done like this were now like this, so it would fit in the container. And then I bent everything down here. Some of those smaller branches were the lower branches always, and whenever I just forced them farther down, I was like, I don't know how well some of this smaller stuff is going to live, in its new position being pushed down, but we'll see. So there's some of that that I'm seeing, and I would have expected that either way. There's always going to be smaller uh, branches that are located, you know, inside, inside the canopy a little bit, that you are either going to move to some point of prominence where they get great light, or they're always going to be, let's see how you do, let's see how you do. But we had a lot of other things going on because remember, I had no sooner did a little bit of design choices on this tree, then decided that we would then graft it. Uh, if the grafts are a go, everything that you see that is green, except the frog tape, well, especially the frog tape, will be gone in 3 years. You know, everything that's green in Ponderosa will be, and all this stuff where the tape is will be the new bonsai tree growing out, and that'll be a tree we know very very well. But while it was getting grafted, I did some I did some styling before it got grafted. I did some styling to the tree. Remember how I said all of the branches had been moved down, and then to get it packed and shipped, it had been kind of moved in a position to where it would fit in the container without breaking or doing harm to itself. So then I needed to put it back or put it some way, and I decided to put it in a position that I liked rather than what the picture looked like and that I bought it from. So after that restyling, then we had it grafted and had it overwintered, and then we went back and got it. And after all of that, I just feel like the tree has been through a lot. But also, I probably wouldn't have needed necessarily to do all of that styling if I knew that we were going to end up grafting the tree before before we had gotten through our first winter. But meanwhile, this small stuff here was always questionable to me. It's already been moved twice, and it was always small. And just recently, like in the last couple of weeks, I I removed a lot of wire from the tree because I was seeing it starting to bleed out in places. We have been putting the tree on a fairly heavy uh, heavy feeding regimen. I have been feeding the heck out of this tree. I want it to fatten up. I want it to be storing resources. I want it to do all kind of stuff, and I'm not worried about the stuff that would necessarily grow out over being fed. I'm more. We're going to cut all of that off at some point anyway. So right now, uh, what I'd like to see happen, and so with all of that biogold and that little bit of that extra feeding, the tree is doing what I want it to do, and it's swelling up. It's swelling up on the wires that the guy who collected the tree put on it. He did a fantastic job of wiring this tree. I really hated to take that heavy, beautiful copper wire off, but it was starting to bleed. I was seeing purple ponderosa sap, and that was clear ponderosa sap with the purple of tarnished copper in it dripping down there. And I thought, yeah, if it's making leaks like that, and I've been told that these things don't like to weep in the same way that you can kind of get away with that on black pines. So a couple of weeks ago, we removed, we erred on the side of safety, and we removed all the wire on this tree. As a result, uh, everything that had been done as a matter of aesthetic choice has been let go. So things that were tipped up are hanging down pretty good now, right? All this stuff is just hanging down. and all of this stuff was pointed up, and it's all having to readjust. So some of it's getting a little burned. I don't really see anything. I don't really see too much like this. This is something. Let me see if I can bring that around. That doesn't look like that to me. Doesn't look like it's gonna um, reposition itself in time to survive if I don't do something. Um, you know, I don't know. I guess I want to. I mean, I have a piece of wire standing by. I could throw a piece of wire on that and tip that back up. Butterscotch. Uh, Ponderosas. The sap on a Ponderosa comes out just white, just clear, and it smells like butterscotch. And if you find a Ponderosa or a bunch of trees, and they are in an area where these guys are known to grow, there is a very close relative to the Ponderosa called a Jeffrey. Uh, they grow in about the same area. They uh, they grow in about the same area. They um, they look similar, very similar in a lot of ways. Um, but genetics, a little genetic test will show that they are, in fact, different trees. I think the Jeffrey can go up a little higher in the air than the Ponderosa. In fact, they could cross pollinate quite often. So some of what we think are Ponderosas, maybe Jeffreys. But one way you can tell, two ways. I'll just tell you two ways you can tell. Two ways you can tell that was making new buds. Yeah. I decided to just cut it. It was an underling, but the good news was it was making a little new buds in there. Anyway, there's two ways you can tell the difference between a Jeffrey and a Ponderosa. And one of them, and they are so similar, their pine cones look almost identical, except except if you hold one in your hand, it has little barbs, and on the very bottom of the pine cone, every little thing on the pine cone has a little barb on it. And on a Ponderosa, those point down. So if you set it in the palm of your hand, you can feel those little needleless ends poking you, a la painful Ponderosa. If you take a Jeffrey and set it in the palm of your hand, the little spike parts are kind of turned, poor dyslexic Pat, are turned more out than down. So it's Gentleman Jeffrey versus Painful Ponderosa. But the more pleasant way to tell the two apart is the Jeffrey doesn't smell like butterscotch, and the Pondo does. So uh, a lot of this other foliage looks really, really good. I think that'll be okay. I just cut that small piece off. I had kind of probably been, not probably, I had been wondering about whether or not it was going to make the transition of the seasons a couple of times now. But you can also see some of the stuff that had motion is got motion, but is going in some, this was originally in a position like this, and everything had my little curls and twists to them. Now, here's the thing I still have to figure out with all of our little curls and twists and cues in this, and with our graphs, either this year's grafts or next year's grafts or whenever year's grafts, whenever the black pine takes over and we're well and truly raising a Japanese black pine, am I going to be able to deadwood any of this twisty curly stuff, or kind of hard for me to envision that. It's kind of hard for me to envision that for along. Sometimes, sometimes I can see some parts of what a tree is going to be, but this part I haven't. I haven't quite figured out how that would look in the scheme of things. So I've gone through here and I've removed some of our third year needles. I give them a little touch if they want to fall off. They can. If they want to stay, then it's hanging on to it, and it's hanging on to it uh, for reasons. So, not here to argue with the tree if it wants its dead needles. It could be storing stuff. Sometimes these guys will also, out of season, put out a flush. It's typically not thought to be the best thing in the world if they do that. But if they have so much energy that they've stored all of the energy that they made this year in their needles and in their roots and in over here, and I've got another pocket over here somewhere, I can put some here. And then it's like we've still made stuff. It was a bumper crop year and we're still making stuff. Where are we going to put it all? We'll just put out another shoot over here and we'll put it over here. Well, that's the stuff that may or may not make it next spring. It was just, the tree needed a place to stash some stuff. So it did. It made a place to stash some stuff. And if that place works out for the tree, fine, okay. If it gets any sun and all the rest of the stuff. And if it doesn't, it just served its purpose. It was a place for some extra hormones or extra uh, things that have been stored up or made to just pretty much hang out. So I removed most of the third year needles. I cut one little thing rather than drag out wire and try to wire it up and see how well it was going to do. And at close look, it probably would have been fine if I'd have wired it and poked it up too. It was making its own adjustments, but it was too small. It's too small, and it's not gonna. In the end, I don't. I was okay cutting it because it's not going to be part of the program at the end of the day anyway. All of this stuff seems to be doing really well, really green. Um, taking out taking out those third year needles did a lot for the, when you're looking at something from 5 feet away, you see a ratio of green, either dark green, medium green, or what's going on there. And I just said, well, I know what's going on there. A lot of that's going to be stuff that I could be taking off, that I could just touch and take off if I were right there close to do it, but I wasn't. So this was a good time to come in and look, and this was a good time to get acquainted with this tree and see if I thought anything was going on. And haven't gotten in here and looked. I don't. I think everything's mostly fine. Um, yeah, but we cleaned it up. We cleaned it up quite a bit. So what I will do now with this guy is I'll make sure that there is a good even layer of bio gold out, and I have to watch how much I'll water this. When it goes into Japanese black pine mode, it would be watered as much as a black pine this big would be watered. Maybe less less than my smaller trees, but still more than a ponderosa. Um, and on that, in keeping with the show I did today, this is the tree that I have to watch me on, because ponderosas take less water than Japanese black pines, bigger trees, bigger pines tend to less, uh, take more time between waterings than smaller trees. So this is a jump and a jump for me on don't overwater this or you'll mess it up. It's really good to get a close personal look at it. I see that it's uh, it's nice and green. It looks very healthy up close. I took care of our third year needles, which kind of did do a number on that bad color good color ratio thing I was seeing. I kind of knew it would, but I've also sometimes said things like that to, oh, it's fine. Those are just third year needles. Oh, it's fine. It's probably just got a little Western exposure on that side. And then so maybe I don't take, I don't look soon enough. Um, this tree is just, I have so many, I have good plans for this tree. I'm really excited about its prospects and bringing it along. And, and like any tree, things can happen, right? But I want to try to I want to kind of keep an eye on this guy and try to make sure that we keep it on the energy positive and that we keep it going. And I think that whenever I have some Japanese black pine foliage on here, whenever I'm sure that I finally have some Japanese black pine foliage on here, I will rest a little easier because I believe I live in a sweet spot for that. And I believe as a tree with that foliage on it, this base and this trunk. Look at that guy. Look down here at this. This just gets, I just rotate it on and around, and it just gets wider, and those hips are just huge. And I haven't really even started messing with um, the shari aspect to it or the deadwood aspect to it. In fact, I've cut some of the deadwood back. I thought some of it was obnoxiously long. I hope I hope I always feel that way. Because it's kind of hard to glue it back. I guess you could. I have heard of such. But this is kind of what we have going. Everything looks different to me because of the wire removed. I just wanted to make sure that all the branches were doing good, and I was just wanting to make sure that the colors that I was seeing were third year needles. I wanted to see if I thought something was pointed down and we were going to lose something big over it. I don't see anything like that. I should probably. I don't think. I don't think I can show you. I've got. I've got a scion, which is a graft right here that is just completely uncovered, and I will fix that before we go back. I'll fix that before we go back. Also, oh golly, uh, a month or two ago, we were told to remove the tape on there and cut the membrane tape that was on those individual scions. And I was just looking underneath there, and I can see one of them has green needles busting out of the side of it, which I think, that's one. That's one right now that thinks it's really happy to be here. So it's almost like peeking. It's almost like peeking at the Christmas present a little early. But I'm glad I did. That's golly, we'll take it. We'll take it. If that was the only one I had, we'd build a tree off that. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Our next spot will be probably manana tomorrow. We should have another. It should be another great day to go out and shoot some bonsai trees. I've got a lot of work to do on our little Japanese black pines. We're getting around time when we could start repotting some of those guys. And I appreciate you, Frida. appreciates you, and I appreciate you guys for coming out tonight to the premiere. And thank you all so much for watching. I know you weren't on screen tonight. You were kind of hiding behind